Wait, I have an idea. Why doesn't he just leave London? Then he's not an American werewolf in London.
He'd still be an American werewolf in anywhere else.
No, he's only an American werewolf in London. If he goes to Paris,
It's like a regional disease. He leaves, he's fine.
it's like allergies.
Hello and welcome.
Shut the fuck up. Hello and welcome to the Best and Worst Pictures podcast. I'm your host, Jake, and with me, as always, my good co-host, Ian.
Me, Ian.
And joining us, as per usual, is my other interrupting co-host, Mud. How you doing?
He mud.
What?
I'm doing great, Jake. Thanks for asking.
I only said what so that I knew it was going to do. What is this show, you might ask? Well, every week the three of us idiots sit down and review a Best Picture winner over the past 100 or so years and determine one of the best or worst pictures as compared to the others. And this week, we're watching the 15th Best Picture winner ever, which is, of course, none other than Miss Miniver. And to start us off, Mud has collected some fun facts about the film, which Ian and I have not heard at a time. So, Mud,
Thanks, Jake.
take it away, you interrupting bastard.
It's Mrs. Miniver, not to knock, just...
So first you interrupt me twice, and then you correct
So
my
it has a
pronunciation.
7.6 out of 10 IMDb, 95% Rotten Tomato critics, 85% Rotten Tomato audience.
Good.
I know, pretty good. It was initially released on June 4th, 1942 for an initial screening before general public on July 22nd. The director is William Wyler, who you guys might remember from last week. He was the original director for How Green Was My Valley.
Yep.
He ended up directing The Little Foxes, which was nominated but did not win.
Okay.
Looking into him, holy shit, I really missed out on who this guy was. He directed Ben-Hur.
Holy shit.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
one of ours, yep.
Yep, and The Best Years of Our Lives. 2 upcoming Best Picture winners.
Damn.
Hell yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited.
We love to hear it.
I know. As for his fun fact, I couldn't decide, so I just wrote down he was a pioneer of the highest regard in cinema.
Yeah.
Like, he was transformative. Like, he's definitely a forgotten titan of the
Sure.
industry, because I've never heard this guy's name before we started this podcast.
Yep.
As for the cast, we have another return from last week with Walter Pidgeon.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I skipped over his filmography because we already talked about it, but fun fact, he served as the 10th president of the Screen Actors Guild. Do you want to know who preceded him? Ronald Reagan,
Okay.
the actor.
Ronald Reagan, president of the Screen Actors Guild, president of America.
Yeah,
Yep.
interesting. After him, we also have Greer Garson. She's known for Goodbye, Mr. Chips, Blossoms in the Dust, Madame Curie, Mrs. Parkington, The Valley of Decision, and Sunrise at Campobello.
Didn't Mr. Chips get nominated last show?
Yes, it did. Now, I know what you're wondering. Why these 6 random films? All films she was nominated for Best Actress in.
Okay.
Blossoms, this film, Madame Curie, Parkington, and Valley of Decisions, back to back to back to back to back.
Did she
5
win
years
any of
in
them?
a row. She won for this film.
Nice.
Holy shit.
We will get into that. And lastly, we have Teresa Wright, who I only wrote down because she was in 1, The Best Years of Our Lives with Wyler as the director, and 2, The Rainmaker from the 90s with Matt Damon and Danny DeVito.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of
Yeah.
funny because Best Years is 4 years away.
Yep,
That's pretty sick.
that's the best years of our lives.
Boy, was
4
it.
of the best years.
But yeah, more importantly, she was in a film with Danny DeVito.
Damn.
That's the. I'm amazed I got him in this early.
Mm-hmm.
So some fun production notes. This was the highest-grossing film of 1942, with a total gross of,
$3.
wait for it, boys,
Oh, I can't wait.
$8.9 million.
Yeah.
Adjusted for inflation, that's about $145.8 million.
That's a
eight-
flop. That's less than
8.9.
budgets of films.
8.9 is a bomb almost no matter what movie you make in today's money.
8.9 million? Yeah.
That's no matter
You'd have
what.
to have like a blind spotting or sorry to bother you budget of like $1 million.
$1 million. So whatever you make is profit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of when the film was written, which was right in the run-up. So World War II has started at this point. It started 3 years ago.
Sure.
But America has not yet entered the war.
Nope.
More or less. 1941, December 7th, that's Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
Okay.
So when they were making this film, we were still wavering. Because of that, the film went through extensive rewrites and became more and more pro-British and anti-German. This is basically a propaganda film.
Oh, hell yeah. We
Ooh.
love those.
Yep.
Uh,
In fact, a scene between Miss Miniver and a flyer, a German airman, was actually refilmed to be more confrontational because of that.
Oh.
Mhm.
Wow.
Miss Miniver herself, this film and the character is based on a novel from the 1940s, which itself is based on a newspaper column from the Times, a
So
British
one-
daily magazine.
So you're telling me it got nominated for Best Original Screenplay?
Naturally. Best original story.
Oof. Yep.
No,
God.
we'll get into
Hate
that.
those
Okay.
rules. I hate it.
As for the awards themselves, Wyler won Best Director.
Nice.
Garson, as we mentioned, won Best Actress.
Good for her.
Tangent. Her acceptance speech was 5.5 minutes long. She's the reason that there are time limits on speeches.
That's sick.
Yep.
That's
After
so
her, they
funny.
put a 45-second limit on.
45 seconds is nothing.
I know.
That's-
like at least a
damn.
minute and a half.
Maybe,
Like,
maybe 2 minutes, you know?
yeah.
No, the Oscars are long enough.
But for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember at the 93rd where they randomly had that game of like, what song is
That-
this movie from?
Before that point, it was a running train, and I loved it.
It was so good, and then they threw it. But
Yeah,
we're not
whatever,
talking about that
whatever.
one yet. Teresa Wright won Best Supporting Actress. She actually beat Mae Whitty, who was also in this film.
Cool.
This film had 5 acting nominations.
Wow.
It won Best Screenplay with 4 writers. And finally, it won for Best Black and White Cinematography. As for nominations, it was nominated for Best Actor with Walter Pidgeon, but he lost to James Cagney for Yankee Doodle Dandy. Henry Travers, another actor in this film, was nominated for Best Support, and he lost to Van Heflin for Johnny Eager. They also were nominated for Best Sound Recording, lost to Yankee Doodle Dandy again. Best Film Editing, where they lost to The Pride of the Yankees, not to be confused with Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Every film just has Yankee in the title.
Best Special Effects, which they lost to Reap the Wild Wind.
Okay.
As for Best Picture, which it won, it beat out 49th Parallel, King's Row, The Magnificent Ambersons, The Pied Piper, The Pride of the Yankees, Random Harvest, The Talk of the Town, Wake Island, and Yankee Doodle Dandy.
I've not seen any of those.
And finally, 2 fun facts.
Oh, God.
First off, Best Documentary this year was a 4-way tie
Oh, my God.
between Moscow Strikes Back, Prelude to War, The Battle of Midway, and Kodoka Frontline.
I have a question. Did they watch any of them, or did they go, they all win?
It gets better.
I have another question.
It's not done. Prelude to War was made by the U.S. Army, and The Battle of Midway was released by the U.S. Navy. There were 25 nominations for Best Documentary, most of them propaganda pieces, but one of them, this is the other fun fact, was a documentary made by Walt Disney about corn.
Why didn't that win? That one didn't win because we weren't involved in a worldwide corn situation. It was just a war situation at that
Walt Disney
point. Yeah.
documentary about corn.
Should have won.
Let's
Also, like,
watch that instead.
not for nothing, but why are you making like 80 different documentaries about just war? Like,
It's propaganda pieces to play in theaters to encourage men to enlist.
is it really a documentary if it's...
No,
Yes.
we can debate that.
Well-
The answer is no, it's not.
It depends on if it's about like a previous war and how like
It's
you could be
about
playing
like
it up.
shit that's happening in real time. I'd argue no, but that's not the point of the
Yeah,
show,
no, you're
so
right.
we don't have to get too far into it. If you guys think 25 films is excessive,
Oh, God.
in 1909, Mary Pickford
Woo!
starred in 51 films.
Jesus.
All of them were directed by semi-relevant pioneer of film and racist D.W. Griffith.
How the fuck... What is he
I
calling
looked
a
into
film?
these. They're all about like 15 minutes. One of them was like 9 minutes.
Mhm.
They're not films by our standards. You know, 1909, they had like
I
one
would
reel and
imagine
it was
so.
a
You
hand
can't film
crank.
50, 20-hour movies a year.
Although interestingly, she had 3 writing credits. Yeah, most of those films are lost, but 51.
51.
If you release them weekly, that's almost a film a week.
Yes, but again, like you're saying, they're
They
a
were
lot
like
shorter.
9 to 15 minutes long.
Right.
All of them were directed by D.W. Griffith.
I would argue that we could take our week's release of a commentary that's 20 minutes in an hour-long show and cut that up into about 51 short films if you want to do runtime alone. So it's not that inconceivable.
Be on the lookout for our new format in 2022.
Shorts. YouTube Shorts, baby.
Fuck that.
Ruin everything about the show. No, all right. But yeah,
That just sounds like TikTok with extra steps.
literally. That's what every app is now. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one because of my favorite reason, which is that I know nothing about it. But I also have a little bit of existential dread about it, which is to say that it won, and it just so happens to be rewritten and retooled to be more propaganda-like. So that could be why it won. And I'm not a fan of that because that means it's not very good, usually.
I don't know if it's going to be... Because it's got an 85% Rotten Tomato score. And it's not even American. She's British. This is a British character.
Mhm.
So it's not even going to be like, oh, yeah, my freedoms.
I'm just afraid because a lot of the propaganda stuff that I've seen, whether it's American, British, or otherwise, the themes, you're like, oh my god, it's so fucking ham-fisty obvious baloney.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm afraid that even if the film is good, the themes and the messages are going to be like, but look at how great our queen is, and
Yep.
da 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 da. Like, fuck that.
Because
Well,
propaganda.
they didn't have a queen in World War II as a king.
Mm-hmm.
Because propaganda films, 99%. I know there's exceptions, but 99% of the time they pander, and pandering cripples storytelling.
You're right.
So,
However, I do have faith because this didn't start out as a propaganda piece. It did change, yes, obviously, and that may hamper the film. But I have faith.
I'm more cynical because of the Justice League Snyder Cut situation. I'm afraid that might happen
Yes,
here.
that pro-American propaganda.
that Best Picture winning Justice League. No,
All right.
all right, let's get into it.
Yep.
We just watched Miss Miniver.
Mrs. Miniver.
Mrs. Miniver. Mrs. Miniver. Mrs. Miniver. How do we feel about the film?
I was very whelmed.
Okay.
It's kind of boring, in all honesty.
For the first half, yeah.
I think even in the latter half, all right, to get right into it, the first part's boring, and then the bombing of England happens, and it's like, oh wow, actual tension, and then it gets boring again.
I agree partially, actually, I'll say, because I think that the movie is incredibly slow
Yep.
until the World War II starts. And as soon as that begins, leading into the big bombing, of course, as soon as that gets going, you start to become more invested in the characters as time goes on. And then the bombing sequence, oh my god, the house gets bombed. It's a very good sequence. I love the scene where right after that, they act happy and normal when their house is in shambles. All that shit is very good.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can talk about the ending eventually, but yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, I think this is kind of mid-tier. It's better
Yeah,
than
it's very-
most, but kind of
very
not as good as most.
well-
I'd say definitely more middle of the road, but I have to lean more to Jake's side, where I
Oh,
don't
no,
think it
I'm
ever
not-
dipped in quality again after it picked up. I agree. The first half of this movie's painfully boring because it's
Yeah.
kind of meandering towards the point.
Yeah.
Like, this movie, you can tell from these posters, like, it's going to be about them surviving the Blitz. But obviously, you can't just go straight into the Blitz, because then the movie's significantly shorter. But it takes too long to get to it, in my opinion. But during the Blitz, you know, that's when the movie really picks up. I do agree with what you mean about the house. We were joking about their house getting blown to smithereens, and then it actually does.
I was not joking. If that didn't happen, I would have given the movie way less points.
That's fair. But it still was, like, really good payoff. This is a good film about the trope of Hollywood films we've seen where it's, like, a bunch of families surviving, like, world-shattering events. But I think it has the added benefit of not trying to be, like, 50 years worth of events. It's just a couple.
Right.
And they're happening as the film is being made, which is another weird thing to think about. Like, there's a sequence where the husband's like, oh, I'm going to go save some boys at Dunkirk. And I'm like, that just happened.
No, I get that. And I want to talk about Dunkirk and how that just happened in a little bit.
I would like to highlight some of the acting in this film, though, because I think for the most part, the main group does a good job, but, like, just about everyone around them sucks.
Yeah, I think our mains are strong. I'll say that.
I don't like Vin very much. I think he's kind
We
of.
know you don't like Vin. Everyone watched the Bloodshot review.
No, like the main son, the oldest son, and the kids fucking suck. For one, the kids are fucking terrible. I hate kids.
Terrible child acting.
It's so bad. But I think Vin is like cardboard. Like, this guy is very England. I want to be pilot. Like, he's very, very bad.
See, I understand that. I do, but at the same time, I think the character of Vin is very
I don't think
appropriate.
his character's bad. I think the delivery of his lines is too, here is my one note, have fun with it. Miss Miniver herself, Carol, and the dad are all good. The kids all suck, even Vin. And the people surrounding them just, it's like they went, you want to be in a movie? To random people.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And a lot of film acting in, like, decades ago was definitely like that. Vin, as a character, was trying to sound way smarter than he really was, especially with, like, oh, I went to these many classes, and he's, like, talking about facts from those
the
classes.
whole, like, the beginning scene, which that scene ends up having no bearing on the plot for as long as it is, where he's talking about how the classism of feudal society still exists. And he's not wrong, but he's doing it in such a I'm a freshman who just took one sociology course and I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Miss Miniver has no emotions in this entire movie. Like, their house gets bombed, and then they go in and talk about the marriage, and it's like, oh, we're so happy, beep, beep, beep. And it's like, your house is destroyed. Like, everything is destroyed, and they don't seem fake cheery. You said that they went in there and acted all cheery. That wasn't acted all cheery. They were just happy. Like,
Right.
that's what it felt like.
I
And
like
it was
that.
very bad for
I
me.
I don't think it was bad because I like the juxtaposition of their tones with the destroyed house. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really interesting
I think,
contrast.
again, because this is propaganda, I think we were missing that scene of like her going off by herself and just breaking down because she's trying to be,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
strong for her kids and strong for her husband and like.
You're definitely right about that. That character definitely needed. You're both right. That character definitely needed more of an anchor to
Yes,
make us
I
care
agree.
about her. You know?
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I care about any of these characters, really.
When she seems unbothered by just about everything,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of becomes hard to emotionally relate to her.
Yeah.
Yep.
She got held up at gunpoint,
By
At
a
one
German
point.
pilot, and
and
she's like,
she was like,
it never comes up again.
yeah, it never comes up. She doesn't tell her husband. She doesn't seem phased by it. Her husband comes home. She's happy. That's it. That's the rest of the movie. And it's like,
Yeah.
everything that has weight and power in this movie ends up getting undercut by the movie existing, in my opinion. And I don't think it's bad. I'm not saying, oh, movies suck. It's just whelming and mid and propaganda. Yeah, we'll get to the end in a little bit, obviously.
Yep.
But like, I think that the worst parts of this movie are, I don't think the scenes connect to each other well enough. And I was complaining about that while we were watching. But I think that a lot of the scenes in this movie, it's just like, scene start, scene goes on, scene ends. Okay, what do? Cut to black and go to the next one. Every time. It was just so choppily, poorly edited, and I'm just not a fan.
The
of
main
that
plot
kind of-
is Vin and Carol,
Yeah.
and they both keep disappearing from
Yep,
the
I
film
agree.
for significant chunks.
I do get that. Like, I understand the disjointed scene complaint, but this movie still does a much better job telling the story about how the war impacts a good British family than Cavalcade does.
I don't think
But
it
Cavalcade's
does.
not just about a war; it's
Yeah.
about decades of events.
Series of events
Well,
that are
my
very
thing
bad.
is, I can contest you on that. I agree that it does at least a job of telling it. I don't think it does a good enough one. I think it's very unrealistic and false. And I understand it's from the propaganda narrative, but the propaganda narrative ruins it for me.
I get that, and it's really tough because we're not going to escape the propaganda narrative, quote, for like many years after this point.
Yeah, every single movie that will be about World War II released in England or America, it has some kind of propaganda on it.
And this is like
Still.
the thick of World War II
Yeah.
as well. Or, like, where it's not even like, oh, this is the past. No, this is now for these people.
This is in the thick of it with the Hays Code. Like, it's pile on top of pile on top of pile. And if this came out after the war, I think this movie would have been improved.
I agree. But I have to say that the Nazi holding her hostage in her own house is the best scene in the movie.
No,
no.
It's the best
when
one.
the bombing when they're in the shelter is
Yeah,
my favorite.
way
That's a-
better.
that's a
There's
good
so
one.
much more emotion in that scene because they're just holding their kids as they're crying, and then the door opens, and it takes them like 10 minutes to close the door for some reason.
That's my second favorite. But again,
I'm swapped on that with you.
I'm really surprised that a movie released in the middle of World War II and in the middle of the Hays Code handled a British housewife interacting with a Nazi soldier in a really long, meaningful sequence with characters that aren't simplistically good or evil. Like, there's a
Yeah.
little bit. I know the Nazis are evil.
I'm
I
gonna
get that.
challenge you
The
on
Nazis
that.
evil, but,
I'm
like-
gonna challenge you on that they're not simplistically good and evil because he starts going off about how he's proud that they bombed women and children because they're enemies.
No, as soon as
Yeah.
I said it, I recanted it. But at the very least, there's anything to Miss Miniver. And okay, so my expectation for a scene in a dumb propaganda film would just be like, oh, well, this Nazi is just trying to kill all people at all points in time, blah, 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 blah. But she's actually, like, coming to his aid. She's not just trying to immediately fight back. And she's also not just trying to do the opposite, which is just like, oh, I'm so helpless, help me. Like,
No, very
there's
true.
something there. It's actually made it, like, a real scene instead of this dumb little
Well,
cartoon thing.
She helped because her son was also pilot. I
Right.
think that was the
And that's
intent there. I understand.
That's a pretty cool character thing. I like that.
I think you're kind of overestimating how strict the Hays Code is here, man. It wasn't like you can't have any nuance in your film whatsoever.
No, but it was you're not allowed to show certain villainy in a positive way.
Yep.
So
yeah, but that was definitely not positive villainy.
No, but her being sympathetic towards the villain, I would not have expected it to be that kind of that much. Sympathy. Yeah.
I never read sympathy from her
in
that scene.
I read it.
He gives her food and drink at gunpoint, and then points out, "Yo, you're an awful person. You bomb cities." And he's like, "Fuck yeah, I do."
I think the fact that she after she takes the gun, the fact that she still at least tries to help him, gets him the towel for his neck and stuff. It gives me this could be my son's, like, I should at least be remotely.
I'll give you that, but
Yeah.
I never really read, like, she's like, oh, he's not the bad guy.
No, it's not that kind of sympathy. It's this could be my son in particular. I would like to give at least some kind of courtesy.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way she got held at gunpoint's kind of stupid. The lead up to that,
Yeah.
it's pretty bad. Like, she finds him passed out in a bush, and his gun is, like, on the ground next to his hand, but he's not holding it. So what does she do? She very, very slowly, like as slowly as you can imagine, reaches for the gun. Then he opens his eye and looks at her, and she stops.
Yep.
And then they just kind of stare at each other for a couple seconds. And then she brings her hand back, and then his hand goes for the gun.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
And then he chases her, and she runs to her house. And then gets in the doorway, and I think he calls out, like, stop, and she does.
Yep. Well, he has a gun at that point that she let him have.
He's had a gun the whole time.
Yeah.
Fun fact, shut the door, lock it. He hasn't shot you yet.
Yep.
Call the police.
Yep. I mean, there's so many things aside, like, before that point that you're talking about. Yeah, she definitely could have stopped that situation before it happened, and I will absolutely concede that she was really dumb in that sequence, and she could have been written a little bit better. There's a scene earlier on where they're in bed and the planes are flying outside. It's the scene where they first realize that, oh, hey, Vin was going to say that he was going to honk his thing or whatever, rev his engine a few times so we can know who he is or where he is.
Yes.
And before that happened, like, when they're in bed and you hear the planes fly overhead, it's actually really eerie and creepy. And I really like that atmosphere. And I love
that's a
how
good
that
scene, yeah.
transforms very slowly into them realizing that their son is up there. And that's a really cool tonal shift that I like a
It was
lot.
also really well, like, established with the mood, because the scene is completely, like, pitch black, save for, like, the moonlight coming in from their open window.
Right.
It's eerie and haunting. And it almost makes for good film.
It almost, and yeah, and that's why I think, like, okay, so if this was just a weird, dumb propaganda movie, it would be awful in every way. And I
Okay.
don't think it is.
I have
It's
a
not.
remotely fun fact about one of these scenes, actually.
Oh, boy.
So if you go back to, we always have visual aids on the TV. I keep seeing, you see the related searches, how it's pajama, pajama, pajama.
Yeah.
In the scene where he jumps out of bed in his pajamas, his penis comes out of his pajama pants.
What?
And we missed it.
Saw it.
Holy crap, I did
Click
not
on
see it.
related scenes, Mrs. Minerva Pajamas.
I'm looking
I
that
wanna-
up
Yes.
right now.
And I looked it up because I keep seeing it and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Was it her? Was it him?
Was it his penis?
Yes.
Was it her penis?
Unintentional humor. It's weird because I'm so used to seeing miniatures in movies where Godzilla comes in and destroys everything. So I saw a lot of miniature boats, some that talk to people in this movie.
Yeah.
And I expected, like, Toho fashion, like, bum, 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 just blow everything up. And I never got that. My brain was disappointed, but whatever.
Speaking of that scene, though, so there's a scene where Mr. Miniver is getting orders to go to Dunkirk.
Yep.
And it's coming from a battleship, and there's nobody on the battleship.
Nobody's on it. It's
Nobody's on it.
so
There's nobody
bad.
on the side.
Yeah.
And it's like holding on the battleship. It's not showing the reactions from him or any of the other boat captains.
Yep.
And it's giving you this monologue about how the boys are trapped at Dunkirk.
Mhm.
And I know this isn't the film's intent, but it reads like the battleship is physically talking.
It feels surreal, like sci-fi.
At the dinner table, I want to get back to Vin a little bit. I have a little bit more to say.
Okay.
The kid asked her, why aren't you married, or something like that? And she responds with, well, he hasn't asked me yet. And then Vin literally stands up insulted and goes, I won't stand for this. Will you marry me? I would say no. What a bitch way to pop the question
Yeah,
because you're
seriously,
defensive.
I said that too.
No, he even says it afterwards. Oh, what a poppycock way to pop the question or
Right.
whatever.
So don't say yes to that
He
bastard.
lampshaded his own fucking stupid thing.
Good. You still say no. You know, like you, or at the very least, like he could be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'll try again later. I do want to, but like this isn't the way to do it.
Mhm.
This is just not okay."
I feel like
Like if I were a girl, I'd be insulted.
a lot of this movie has a lot of filler. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Towards the beginning, there are those two dudes in the bell tower who just talk about how great Miss Miniver is.
We cut
And it's
back
like-
to him at least twice.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, honestly. I very much dislike that.
And then at
And
some
then
point they just stop showing up.
They stop showing up at about 45-ish minutes through. And then there's like even more scenes, like the bar scenes where they just go in, get a drink, leave. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, you could cut out a good 20, 25 minutes of this movie because it just feels like auxiliary fluff.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that's true too, because like the bar scenes and scenes like it are their purpose is to establish like, hey, the world is changing because of the war, kind of a little bit.
But
You
not
could
really.
have like a main character like Vin or Miss Miniver herself go to that bar and have her experiences be what changes while in that bar while people are talking. So you could-
Finn and the dad were in the bar in the first scene and it still didn't matter.
right, you could have that matter to the main characters, but I feel like they really didn't. Or scenes go by without any of the main characters about those things,
Yeah.
like the second bar scene, for example. And I feel like the main characters could have been impacted in this. Like, if you're just writing the movie, you could have just made that a scene for one of those characters, and that would make us care about them.
I feel like a lot of the impact of this movie gets lost because not enough shit happens to them.
Yeah, absolutely. That
Yeah,
kinda
it's
goes in
supposed
line.
to be about them enduring World War II.
She barely endures anything. They lose the house, never talk about it. She gets held up at gunpoint. No one talks about it.
Because they never really go through the emotional weight. Like, this shit's traumatic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Your home's being bombed. There's a Nazi in your kitchen. Like, come on.
They never go into it.
You gotta feel
And
something.
I do want to give the movie credit. I've just been shitting on it the whole time. When they have the scenes of close up and you don't realize anything's destroyed, and then they go to wide shot and you realize like the roof is fucked up, the walls are fucked up. They do that in the house and they do that in the church, which are the only two destroyed buildings that you see in the whole movie. Super duper powerful. The scene where Carol fucking dies,
Yep.
super duper powerful. The
Mhm.
scene in the bunker and parts of the scene with the spy. I can't say the whole scene because it does get very lost in propaganda.
I want to build off that in a moment. Not
I
the propaganda thing, but the spy scene.
I think there's a lot of powerful stuff in this movie, and it just gets undercut by. I don't know if it's has to be because of the propaganda or it's because the code doesn't allow you to talk very like you're not allowed to talk negatively about certain things, and I completely understand that. But in the same breath, I think without negative repercussions and the negative impact of getting constantly bombed and how haunting that is,
Mm-hmm.
it misses the point. Like the tagline, the log line of the movie is legitimately, we're going to go watch a British housewife's life change forever and two things happen to her and the movie ends.
Yep.
And it's like, great.
We just don't see enough of an emotional response to these events.
Mm-hmm.
We need more. You know what? Apocalypse Now, suffering, whole film. This movie needs to be Apocalypse Now. I understand that not every movie needs that, but this movie with its log line, I expected suffering.
First of all, in many ways, many movies need to be Apocalypse Now. But
Yeah, they
second,
should be.
Also, there are definitely some scenes in this movie that had a lot of power and impact, and there are scenes that you're talking about that don't. Absolutely, that definitely needed more of an impact. And I think that all ties back to the main characters aren't really the ones that are experiencing a lot of turmoil until A, the shed scene, and B, when she dies towards the end of the movie. And those are two really big things, but there's really only two really big things.
More on the technical side of this film,
Oh,
the editing's atrocious.
the editing's fucking terrible. However, I do want to point out that the miniature battleship looked big.
It did.
It looked awesome.
That looked awesome.
The only thing that made me know it was a mini was there's no people on it. You couldn't have done anything. Come on,
Yep.
try. And second, the plane exploding at the end of the movie
Beautiful.
was fucking awesome.
It was.
That's so cool.
That being said, I need to talk about the editing more than just saying it sucked.
oh, it's
There are so many awkward cuts and like weird transitions and B-roll that has nothing to
Yep.
do with the film.
the fade to black transitions. I already mentioned it. Oh my god, use any other transition.
There's a scene where it cuts to Mrs. and Mr. Miniver driving, and then it cuts to them doing something else. And I'm like, what was the point of that scene? They didn't even talk.
And during the driving in this movie's atrocious. They did a whole 90-degree turn and no one
At, like,
moved.
80 miles
Yeah,
an
it was
hour.
so good.
And there's the Nazi in her kitchen's like, give me the milk, and he starts drinking, and it cuts to Mrs. Miniver watching him,
and then he has
and he cuts back milk all over his chest.
Yeah, it is
like he
terrible.
just slobbered, and he was not drinking poorly in the last shot. He was
No.
he was like don't get me wrong, he's like gulping it down, but like he's drinking normally. He's not
Yeah.
like one of those weird people who just lets the drink like flow over them when they're thirsty.
I see your bet, and I'm going to raise you because almost 52 minutes into the movie, one scene is edited as if Vin phased through the railing to get up the stairs.
Oh, my
yeah.
God, we
So
love
the
that. We had to stop and
We
rewind.
have to stop and rewind.
Yep.
So the stairs are built like they come down and then they turn.
Yep.
And Vin is very clearly set up to be standing behind the railing.
Yep.
And when the camera cuts, it's very awkward. And like the way the railing is perceived, it looks like it's the outside banister,
Yep.
but it's the inside one. So when Vin bolts up the stairs, you think that the camera's set behind the outside banister, and Vin just phased through them.
Yep.
And
It's
even
very
then,
awkward.
it still doesn't work because he'd have to go around,
And
and
we
it
don't
still
see
looks
that.
like he's coming at it
The
head
only
on.
way that shot could have made sense without breaking laws of physics is if Vin lunged so fast and so quickly over that railing, but landed and didn't break anything, and tumbled, but also
He'd
kept
also have to
going.
land immediately in front of the banister so we don't see his body.
So he shot straight
Yep.
up and then down at an angle, but landed right at the
He
bottom,
picked himself up, hovered over it, and dropped.
which no human would do.
And speak.
He definitely supposed to just go around the banister, but
Yeah,
the
but
way
they
it's
missed
cut,
the B-roll for that to put in more dog shit.
yeah. But,
like
yeah.
why was it? It's punched in so awkwardly on the banister.
A lot of this movie's zoom in is very strange. The blocking and focus in this movie is all bad.
I wanted to talk about that. There's a scene where Gladys, their maid, is crying and like over her husband or something. She's stiff as a board and like very mechanically putting down plates at a table,
Mhm.
but she's like weeping, and it's like the blocking for this is so awkward.
And you know what? That never gets brought up.
no,
We don't know what happens to Horace. I remember his
Yep.
name.
going to the front lines never gets brought up again.
There's a wide shot where they're talking, neither of their mouths move. And then it punches in and both their mouths are moving. I'm like, oh, they do have the capability of moving their mouths. Fucking neat. I hate these old movies where people's mouths don't move when they fucking talk in wide shots.
Yeah.
Or when you're looking at it from like a behind angle from like the over the shoulder and their mouths are moving and it just does not match the words. That happens so infrequently in modern day movies that when it happens, I'm like, ah! Like, it scares the shit out of me, man. Like, it freaks me out.
You
because-
know,
you know when videos buffer, and then when they stop buffering and the mouth doesn't match up with the audio,
Yeah,
and you have
yeah.
to pause it and unpause it? That shit throws me off so bad. That's what every one of these movies does, and it just makes me so angry.
I want to mention a few more points.
Yeah, I'll go for it.
God Save the Queen comes back. It was just in the last one, I believe.
it's a British song.
Every single time I'm like, is this My Country 'Tis of Thee? It's God Save the Queen. Again, it's the same song. Again, why do we steal their songs? Yes, we're badass. We steal things. Great. Good job, America. But like, fuck.
That's true. I didn't. Well, it's just because I believe it was How Green Was My Valley was the last
Yep.
one. That movie was the point where we realized that song ripped off that song.
And then it does it right again.
did
the
it
next
again. I was
time.
like,
yeah.
nah.
Yeah,
how
but I
many
mean,
times?
both movies are set in England.
True.
No, yeah,
but,
I'm not gonna fault it
but
for
yeah,
that.
but just because that is doesn't mean it's going to sing that song at any point. You know, like
You're
it's
right.
funny
I
that
guess
they both do.
The fucking Pledge of Allegiance isn't in every American movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprisingly.
Francis Scott Key's national anthem is not in every movie about America.
Could you imagine?
It'd be terrible.
Every
That's-
movie set in America has that song.
If Michael Bay did Transformers 6, it would have the Pledge of Allegiance as the opening sequence.
It would be Optimus Prime saying it.
covered by Linkin Park. I want to talk about a positive thing,
Okay.
a negative thing, and then a big discussion. So my positive is going to be it has some excellent themes, even though All Quiet is better at doing its excellent themes, and it kind of dances around the same territory and or the opposite territory as All Quiet, because All Quiet's supposed to be like, war is infinitely terrible, please stop. And this is like, we're gonna win the fucking war. Fuck you. We're about to win this thing.
Yeah,
it's
no
like,
metal.
the ending is definitely like a very badass kind of fuck you.
Oh my god, the ending is just propaganda.
Bro-
We
yeah.
will talk about it.
Yeah.
But All Quiet is like the antithesis, which is why it's infinitely better. But
Oh yeah.
the other thing, the negative that I had, of course, is the very beginning, which is this really long, stupid title card that, were we not to have read it, the movie reads the exact same.
Yeah. I
It
agree.
adds nothing to the experience and shouldn't be there, just like a lot of title cards in a lot of older movies.
And a lot of this movie.
yeah, that's true too.
Do you know what, Jake? I'm gonna follow your train. I have a positive, a negative, and maybe a big discussion.
Okay.
Positive. The script is really, really smart with some of its little intricacies.
Mhm.
Example, when the first siren goes off, the cop comes in the house and says they have a light. The board is broken. He fixes it. He talks about the cigarette light they could see it from there, and it draws it. He's smoking his pipe upside down later on in the movie, so the light from the pipe does not alert the planes. Super fucking smart.
And subtle, because they don't talk about it.
Super subtle. It's
Right.
never mentioned again. The negative, the rest of the script blows.
I don't know about the rest of it, but a lot
All
of
right. So I think after the German pilot scene, it just so happens he gets back from Dunkirk 3 seconds after he gets arrested. It's so convenient. And I hate script convenience. Like, I understand that you want to make something as easy as possible. That being said, like, at least maybe an hour.
Yeah.
They took the guy out of the house, and then she might, is that a boat? Oh, Clem. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? He comes back 1 minute earlier. He's like, what's happening in my house?
And she's like, no, nothing.
Here's the most intelligent part of the script, like 13, 14 minutes after that. But like 15 minutes prior, it was like, here's the dumbest shit on the planet, sir. The script is so smart and so stupid at the same time.
I never got into my big discussion
Oh, I'm
point.
sorry.
No, it's all right. I wanted to hear that, actually. I want to get your guys' takes on this.
Bad.
Okay, good.
Okay, sorry.
Dunkirk, the thing, occurred in 1940. The movie came out in 1942.
Yep.
And, of course, a big part of this movie is about and the aftermath of Dunkirk to some extent with the characters.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is such a thing as too soon after a major event that kills millions of people, even if it's not a joke? Because jokes can be too soon. But can a serious drama movie about the thing be too soon?
When was the first film about 9/11 released?
Not for years.
Yeah,
Not
that's
for
what I
years?
mean. Like, the equivalent would be...
25th Hour is about post 9/11 New York.
Right.
And it was like
But-
lauded for being about post 9/11 New York, and that came out in 2002, but it's not about
Right.
9/11.
I
Okay.
mentioned this during the movie, but the analogous to Miss Miniver would be if a movie in 2003 was about 9/11. And I don't know if the
Jake,
culture would have been about
I'm gonna
that.
one-up you on this real quick.
Mhm.
Yeah, Dunkirk's a big thing, whatever. This movie is about World War II, and World War II's not fucking over.
That's true,
It's
too.
like if you made a movie about 9/11 while the plane was crashing.
That is a good point.
I guess we do stuff like that now. Like
Mhm.
a film like Extraction, for example, movie sucks. But like it's about trouble and turmoil in a Middle Eastern country, and we're still doing that. So like, even though we're technically not, but we still are.
Yeah.
So I guess it still happens, but those are less wars as opposed to conflicts. This is war is war. This is World War II.
Yep.
The war.
Mm-hmm.
I understand World War I was the war, but now this is the war.
Mm-hmm.
So like
So I guess
it's
to
major.
so what would your opinion be? Like, is there a thing is too soon
I
qualifying
think
when it's in the
during
middle
is
of it?
too soon.
Is during too soon? So is
Like,
that a? Do you think so? Or?
No. I don't think there's too soon. Contingency, it's a documentary.
Okay, fair.
Because if you're trying to highlight specific political or religious or life aspects during a tragic event that is ongoing, like a war
Mm-hmm.
or a conflict or like the California fires, for example, if you're
Sure.
trying to do a documentary on the firefighters during that or something, tragic events like that, getting that kind of documentary footage to have the real-time effect to show people, because some people undercut a lot of the emotional impacts on certain things of these big events because they're gonna be like, oh, it can't be that bad. People always undersell and undercut
Mhm.
nowadays anyway. I don't know about back then.
Yep.
I don't think there is a too soon for a documentary style thing because it's not for entertainment. It's for informing and I guess persuasion, because a lot of those documentaries do have a ethos, right? The ethical like and pathos, the feeling
Yep.
skew on them.
And I know people, and I want to pass it off to Mud in a second. I want to get his take, but like I know there are definitely people out there that'll be like, no, there's got to be like a grace period. You can't make a thing about a thing until like 10 years. And
No,
it's like,
that's
I don't-
fucking dog shit.
Yeah, I
man.
don't know if I fall on
I
that
don't.
side, but-
10 years is, if you want to hit an impact, it's tough. As long as it's not like Tom Cruise stops 9/11, that you shouldn't make forever. For one,
Those well, not Tom
That
Cruise.
would be Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those exist.
he said that in real life.
He did say that in real life.
So
But
like
those movies definitely exist where
movies
like
that, I think, yeah, like
I think
dude,
the strongest case is probably Pearl Harbor, the movie by Michael Bay.
yeah. But a movie like, for example, Saving Private Ryan,
Mhm.
if that came out after in a like 5-ish years after, in like a maybe-ish propaganda-ish way, or even a normal way. The movie's just really good.
Yep.
We're gonna watch that one, aren't we?
Which one?
Saving Private Ryan.
No.
Did it? I think it won awards, but not best.
It didn't
Picture.
win Best Picture. No. We'll
I-
talk
I-
about that though, because I've seen it and it slaps.
It is really good.
Can I toss
yeah.
something out there? We're talking about, when is it okay to make something about
Sure.
something and not be the
Dive
most-
directly in, my friend.
Yeah.
Apocalypse Now, 1979. Vietnam War ended in 1975. That's
Yeah.
a 4-year grace
That's
period.
about 5 years. Yeah.
Yep.
George Lucas, the original intended director for Apocalypse Now, wanted to film it in Vietnam during the war
Oh.
because he was actually working on that film before Star Wars.
Yep.
Because if you guys will remember, that film took 2 years to complete. It started filming in 77.
Yep.
Yep.
Star Wars is the reason it got completed, but we're not talking about Apocalypse Now, sadly, ever.
Oh, we'll talk about that the year we watch a movie
Kramer
for
versus
that.
Kramer, I think.
Yeah.
Kramer versus Kramer. Good movie, not better. But point is, I think that's a good example of a quick turnaround. That being said, though, you need to remember that the public consciousness was largely against the Vietnam War
Yep.
during the time.
World War II, it wasn't, oh, we shouldn't do this. It's, whoa, holy shit, we should probably do something about this.
Yeah, and more to the Dunkirk thing.
Mhm.
To build on that, 9/11 was a tragedy.
Yep.
Dunkirk was a miracle.
That's true. I didn't think
Like,
about
people call Dunkirk the Dunkirk miracle.
that.
Yep.
Mhm.
If we look at this film through a propaganda lens,
If they leaned more into
the
that.
Americans are saying, look at how much the British can endure. They saved hundreds of thousands of soldiers with their goddamn weekend boats. We need to help them. They're strong, and they're not giving up without a fight, and they're the kind of people we deserve to help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, it didn't really overtly say that, because Dunkirk, they're like, going to Dunkirk, and then he comes back, and he's like, well, that was fucking crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's more than just saying how much time has passed. Well, what was the event itself?
context,
Was it a positive impact or a negative impact?
Mhm.
You know, because
And-
negative impact takes longer to get away from.
True. And also, hypothetically, a positive, like Dunkirk, Miracle of Dunkirk, for example, a positive impact, hypothetically, there's no grace period
Yeah.
because it's a good thing.
Immediately, the fucking British are like, print that shit.
Right.
We need fucking,
Yeah.
we need a morale boost right now.
There you go.
Holy shit, we just saved all our soldiers because we're the fucking best.
To bring it in about what you guys are talking about as well, it's like the Boston Marathon bombing.
Oh, there were
couple years
so many
ago.
movies about that.
Yeah, I was shocked to see like it was like 2 years after, 3 years after. I'm like,
Can I?
it wasn't as national of a tragedy,
It was kind of a national thing.
but
like,
it felt more national. It's more local to us because we're here.
yeah, it definitely had a
But
serious impact.
It didn't
on
have
us.
as much death.
No,
Like it was like
less than
6 people.
If I can point something out about that,
Yeah.
we did eventually catch the bombers.
Yeah.
You know, and like the city celebrated. So that was kind of the quote unquote end of it.
Yeah.
You know, with 9/11, we're still in the war that it caused.
On that point, I'm looking at it. 2 big movies came out. Patriots Day in 2016, which was 3 years after.
That was the Mark Wahlberg
And
film.
Stronger in 2017, the year after that.
They are about two different things, though. Patriots Day is about the police manhunt to catch
Yep.
them,
Yep.
Mhm.
and Stronger is about one of the victims who had their legs blown off.
The
You know that
survivor, yeah.
iconic photo of that guy in the
Yep.
wheelchair?
Yeah.
I'd say they're propaganda in 2 different ways. I'd probably say the more tolerable one's probably Stronger because it's about a personal journey of endurance.
It's not
and
about
survival.
Mark Wahlberg.
And it's not Mark
Uh,
Wahlberg.
I
It's
just-
Jake
I-
Gyllenhaal.
I really find it insane because I see the fucking poster for Patriots
Oh,
Day.
it's so bad.
It's just Mark Wahlberg, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so strong, I'm so cool, I'm so tough."
I would have stopped 9/11.
It's literally just in my mind. I'm looking at this poster, going like, I'm thinking about executives in Hollywood going like, "Boy, I can't wait to cash in on this."
This would be the perfect double down for us to talk about.
Patriots Day and Stronger.
Yeah, talk about
Yeah.
the Boston Marathon bombing as 3 kids who, you know, we didn't live through it, obviously, but, like, we were old enough to remember it. Like, we're not little kids. Like,
Yeah.
when 9/11 happened, we were 3 to 5 years old.
I did not
I don't
remember
remember it.
I don't
It was
remember.
my first day of kindergarten. Remember it vividly.
Congrats, bro.
Oh my
Yep.
god.
My point is, 2/3 of us don't remember 9/11, so
Yep.
we can't talk about, like, how crazy those days were. I remember the Boston Marathon bombing, like, I was going to school and people were like, do you think we're gonna, like, get locked down like fucking Stoughton and Watertown and shit? And I was
Yep.
like, I don't know, man.
Yep.
Especially because, like, my high school pulled from kids who were, like, not in the blackout zone, but, like, on the cusp of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, we were just outside the radius of
It
where
was
they were
during
hunting.
a vacation week.
Was it?
Yep. I was out that whole week.
That's weird. I remember being in school for it. Maybe it was, like, the week after.
It was probably the week after because
Yeah.
they were still.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're
Getting my
good.
weeks mixed up. Because I remember, like, getting back to school after it and, like, talking to people and being like, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
what's a good movie about like a recent kind of event like that? Because I think they're all just shit. Aren't they all just shit cash grabs?
Yeah,
Like,
in a
I can't think of, like, a good one.
Remember me?
Remember Me with Robert Pattinson.
We've talked about it so many times on the show now.
Remember Me means never forget. It means
does
the same
mean never
thing.
forget. It's the same
That's why they called it that. Ah,
I fucking hate movies,
All right,
bro.
can we, Jake?
Yeah,
you
let's
said
wrap
you
it
had
up.
a big fucking dummy thick topic.
Sorry,
That
yeah.
was it.
That was the topic I wanted to bring up.
Ah,
That's why we did that.
it took so long to talk about it that I
About
didn't
like,
know.
hey, is there a
Ian,
grace period?
You said
Should
you
we
had a
do that?
dummy thick topic.
Yeah, mine was about how the script was bad, but also
Yeah.
good. But
We already
also
went into
bad.
that.
All right, so I
yeah.
think this is wrap up then, because I'm
Wrap
out of things
up.
to say.
I would like to point out, guys, we normally talk about why we think a film won Best Picture over others.
Yep.
I think this film won because of the propaganda aspect. For
Yes.
one. I think
Yeah.
propaganda. But for two, the plane exploding scene at the end was technically marvelous.
I don't think one quick shot like that would win it. I think it's more the propaganda.
I agree.
This was a year with a 4-way tie for documentaries, 2 of which were produced by the American Army and Navy, won Best Documentary over Walt Disney's fucking documentary about corn.
The corn, I forgot about.
You're
the
telling
corn.
me that Walt Disney's corn movie wasn't the best film of the year? Yeah, this is propaganda, bro.
We didn't talk about the end of the movie, really.
Oh, I didn't mention this during the fun facts.
Oh no.
That scene, that final scene where the priest goes off and talks about war and endurance,
Yep.
was rewritten the night before. The speech, quote, made such an impact that it was used in essence by President Roosevelt as a morale builder and part of the basis for leaflets printed in various languages and dropped over enemies in occupied territories.
Yep.
Wow.
Roosevelt ordered the film rushed to theaters for propaganda purposes.
Wow.
Sheesh. Damn,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Will Coxon, one of the writers, and William Wyler wrote and rewrote the key sermon the night before, which basically gives Churchill's "We will fight on the beaches" speech.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, it very starkly evolves, or kind of shifts, not even evolves, just shifts directly into, like, we're gonna fuck them. That's why I was
Which is what
like,
bothers me, because I think it would have worked better if he stayed focused on Carol's death and it was more of an analogy
right.
Yep.
to the hardship of war.
And that's why I contrasted it earlier to All Quiet, because that point of that movie is like, stop doing war. It's just destructive to everyone involved, including
Paul
the people
just
who win.
dies.
But yeah, including the people that win the war, it's still destructive to them too. And the point of this movie is like, fuck you, we're about to take you out, bro.
Yeah, we're barely suffering a little bit, but we're
Yeah.
gonna fuck you up.
Like, literally, the house gets bombed and destroyed. Miss Miniver's just like, y'all hear something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with what you were saying earlier, Ian. This film would have been better if it came out after the war and could be more of a reflective piece.
Right.
Rather, it's being bogged down by its propaganda.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because this film is propaganda. If anyone says this film isn't propaganda,
They're
like I
wrong.
said, Roosevelt literally rushed it to theaters
Mm-hmm.
to make it a propaganda piece.
Yep. And yet, I'm not gonna say every film that has propaganda in it is bad, because one of my favorite stupid fucking Rocky movies is just propaganda for
Rocky
the Cold
IV.
War. But like that takes more of a back seat to the characters, and I honestly think that narrative strengthens the film in a way because it makes it a little bit more interesting and reflective. And now
Mm-hmm.
this movie, I'm like, that's just propaganda. Propaganda here is propaganda. Like, it doesn't feel like anything. There are
Yeah.
actual emotions and vitriol, and like you understand and feel the clash in that, as opposed to England must persevere in the war made by Americans. It's
Yep.
like, what the fuck is this? You know?
Yeah.
So I guess with that out of 10.
Let's get to it, baby. This is the hardest middle of the road yet. 5. Because I still, after all this hour of talking about it, don't know if I like it.
Yep.
I'm still
I
torn.
agree. I think there are some good things. I do think overall it's tough. I would love to give it the 4, but I was whelmed by most things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the lower end of a 5 for sure, because I'm teetering towards, you know what? I don't think it's good because the propaganda. I that's it. Like,
That's fair.
at that point, I think the mid film becomes lower.
Yeah.
But I think I will stick with the 5. I just can't go higher.
Mm-hmm.
5.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. This film would be better if it wasn't so
Heavy into that
up its own ass.
Ham-fisted.
Ham-fisted
Yeah.
up
Very
with that
ham-fisted,
stuff.
especially
Needs
at the
more
end.
emotional weight, and the first half needs to be cut down.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
agree.
Oh man,
Guys,
that was a long one.
Mutiny Cavalcade.
You already know it's gonna be It Happened One Night and then also Cavalcade.
Listen, if you're listening to this podcast, you know. So, Jake,
quiet, cavalcade.
what are we watching next week?
I'll tell ya, we're gonna be watching Casablanca, and we're guesting on Joaquin of the Potato Cast fame. So
'Cause
check
for
that
once,
out.
we know we're doing this in advance.
Right, exactly.
Dude, honestly, it makes the shows a banger. We're super excited to have him.
A naked American man stole my balloon.
In
Of
London.
Again, this is a situation like Children of Men where, yeah, the game probably makes sense, but they didn't capture anything, so they probably just moved the pieces toward each other and called it a day.
God, they are the same. One of their faces is set to wide. One of their faces is set to 4x3. Do you think Jack's gonna come back as like a zombie werewolf and they're gonna werewolf fight?
No, this isn't a Marvel movie.
But then let's fast forward to 2010's The Wolfman. We had a werewolf fight.
Yeah, that slapped.
That was directed by the director of Captain America the next year.
You're right.
He was talking about werewolves.
It's been about 3 weeks, and none of us have moved a single fucking piece since that guy walked in the bar.